Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and this is the episode that I know a lot of you have been waiting for, and I have definitely been waiting for, where we're going to slap some of the ugly off of the Roxster. Alright guys, welcome back, and those of you who've been following will know that this is the Roxster. This is my 98 Porsche Boxster that blew the engine, and so I put an Audi V8 into it, and it sort of runs. I've driven it, it does run. Those watching last episode will have seen that the starter motor died. I've taken it in, and this has been repaired. Basically, it was the clutch in the end of this starter motor that was the issue. So that's just been swapped. We just sort of combined the two together and got a working starter motor. So this has got to go back in. But I have been bashing my head against the brick wall with this car with so many just little niggles, just getting it right, getting it working properly. So I thought I would have a bit of a break from that this episode and start looking at making it look a little bit better. Some of you have suggested that maybe the Roxster is kicking up a stink because it's just been so mistreated and it looks so terrible. So we're going to rectify some of that and just take a lot of the ugly bits off of the car. So I know you've been looking forward to this as much as I have, so let's get stuck in. Those who missed that previous episode, I'll put a link up above so you can catch up and think about subscribing. It definitely helps us out. So all right, where do I start? There's so many bits I want to take off, but I think first things first, let's go around and start flicking off some of these little glued on accessories, because that's just really irritating. All right, so the first bits I want to get rid of are these fake carbon fiber vents on the back. They're fake in a few ways, that they are fake carbon fiber, and all fake carbon fiber should be burnt in hell. I cannot stand fake carbon fiber. Even the new GR Yaris with the fake carbon fiber roof. Why? There's real carbon fiber underneath it. Just forged carbon looks much better. The fake carbon is just horrible. So fake carbon fiber does not exist. It should not exist anywhere, and particularly in this case. And these are also fake vents because they're louvers with no holes in them. So they do absolutely nothing. They're just an ugly addition to the car. So let's start flicking these bits off and see about some of these other little stick-on things. That looks so much better. There's still a little bit of residue there, but I'm not overly worried. There was a couple of little chips out of the paint, particularly under these little triangular bits that were on the corners that lifted up. Again, it looks like they might have used super glue or something to hold them down, so it's just grabbed the paint and torn it off. I'm not really that concerned because, as I said, this is a track car. As long as it looks better than it did, that's the aim. All right, next. Believe it or not, these are not real side pipes on the Roxster. Considering the engine's sort of back here, the exhaust does not come forward and come out of these plastic side pipes. So I think these are the next thing to come off, and I've been dying to do this. There's lots of Sikaflex behind it. Now, this car has skirts on it that I may actually leave for the time being, just because they're not terrible. But obviously it does have this. I'm not sure if these are factory skirts or not. I don't know. But these holes are definitely a big issue. So either way, I'm going to pull that off. There's also this weird piece here that, let's see if this comes off. Lots of Sikaflex. So nice to get some of this ugly off. Now back with a razor blade and see if we can get the rest of this gum off the car. At least it looks like they didn't actually prepare it underneath. So it's just coming straight off the paint. That's always a good thing when they don't do it properly. I sort of contemplated keeping these wheel arch flares. I don't actually, as you've seen with my other cars, don't actually mind wheel arch flares on some cars. These are completely useless because they don't actually widen the track in any way. Maybe an inch. Like they're really not very useful, and they've been put on badly. Somebody deliberately put them on a lot lower than the original wheel arch to make the car look a lot lower than it actually is. And they're not put on very well either. So they're going to come off as well. All right, I ended up taking the skirts and everything off. They're all joined together and horribly covered in miles and miles of this Sikaflex stuff. It's a real mess, and I think it's much better with it off. The wheels do stick out a bit. I actually have some different wheels to put onto this car, so we'll see how they fit. I actually have spaces on here because I've got some 996 GT3 wheels which have a different offset on the back. So I've got the. We'll see how they go when we get them on the car. But now I've got to go through and get rid of all of this horrible gunk that's just so thick. Ugh. All right, that's looking much better with the skirts removed, and of course I found that it was held on with roofing screws, like absolutely screwed up completely underneath the car. These monster things, yeah. That's not how you should mount body kits. And then it was moulded on inside, so it's made a mess everywhere. But it definitely looks much better without that. I'll take the wheel off in a bit and take off this extra bit of felt here that they sort of used to extend the wheel arch liner to the new skirt or skirt and wheel arch flare. I think that's looking better. So let's get it down now and have a look at that wing. As much as I enjoy Formula One, I think the active or inactive DRS in this car, it's time to go. This wing is completely useless. It's never been bolted on properly. It's loose and sloppy, so let's unbolt it and get rid of it. It's another brisk morning, and I'm back into it. As you saw previously, I took the skirts and wheel arch flares off. I went over it with a Scotch-Brite pad on the die grinder just to get a lot of the gum and sort of Sikaflex residue off of the car, and it's looking much better. I may need to put wheel arch flares back on it again because of the wheels that I've got for the car, which are GT3 wheels, so the offset is bigger and it may need the flares, but that can go either way. I'll deal that when we come to it. This is a race car. I don't mind it, and as you know, I don't mind wheel arch flares on cars because most of them are wider. So, all right. So let's move on to something that you all have been waiting for such a long time. Okay, so I know this is a race car and this is going to make me lose a lot of downforce, but I think it's time to take off the doorstop diffuser. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this, yeah, I think it's time. One of them got knocked off previously, so it was missing, but I think it's time to for them all to join suit and be gone. Be gone! And we are free of the doorstops on the back. There's a bunch of these, and I'm actually going to try and come up with some sort of competition so that any of you who are actually interested in having a bit of nostalgia, a piece of the Roxster, I will be sending these out to a bunch of viewers. Happy to have suggestions for what sort of competition or whatever I can do in the comments to work out who gets these. So leave your suggestions below. A bunch of the Patrons will have first crack at these. So if you are really keen on these, being a patron is definitely a much better shot at getting one of these prized doorstops. So now that I've got this all off, and like you might have seen, I went over it again with the die grinder with a Scotch-Brite wheel. I'm going to go through and just tidy these up with a little bit of spray on black. It's not going to be perfect. I'm going to do something about the paint on this at some later stage. But for the time being, just to make it look a little bit more uniform, I'm just going to put some simple black onto these and just try and make it look a little bit better than it does at the moment. So yeah, a little bit of cleanup and I'll spray this thing up. And also things like these horrible holes on the side here, if I bring you around, that are I'm not going to fill them in. They're on the plastic bumper. I'm not going to go that far, but I can at least paint them black so they disappear a little bit more than this horrible redness that's there. And same again on here on the side. I'm going to get rid of those horrible red bits so that it just sort of goes black again. So of course, if you're going to take the aero off the back, you need to balance it out by removing the aero on the front. And of course, if you've got a rear diffuser, you always have a front diffuser as well. But anyway, yeah, the front diffuser door stops are going to come off as well. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these bolts. If I zoom in here, I actually looked at these previously, and what these are is these are actually just a nut and bolt going through the bumper, which I believe was just a cosmetic thing that they did to try and make it, I don't know, look better. At the moment, I'm probably going to leave them there because there's they're big holes in there, so it's not going to be easy to remove them and plug the holes and stuff, and they're not really hurting at this stage too much, so they can stay there. I will try and tidy up this this sort of bogged area a bit. This is where they had actually previously put the driving lights and completely blocked the radiators, which I think was part of the issue of why this thing actually blew up in the first place, is because the people who worked on this before were not doing nice things to this car. All right, well, it started, which is a huge step in the right direction, meaning the starter motor now works again, which is great, which I installed off camera. You've seen me pull it in and out a million times, and yeah, it works, which is good. The next thing that I've really been dying to do to fix on this car is this horrible, horrible bonnet. Now, basically what this is, I believe it may actually be off of originally made for a Cayenne, like a Gambala Cayenne bonnet bulge thing. That's what somebody suggested, I'm not sure. It's sort of to the shape of the bonnet, but it stops short up here. I know that there are LED lights under here, so there's going to be a hole in the bonnet somehow, but it's actually attached to the original bonnet is underneath. I don't know how well it's secured. I say it's got a fair bit of Sikaflex on it, so it's going to be a bit of a pain to get off. I'm going to get covered in fiberglass dust, which is absolutely horrible, but it's got to come off. Again, it's a race car. I could buy another bonnet, but that's spending money on something that I already have a bonnet that's functional. The fiberglass bonnet, if I could get one, would not be that much lighter. And just taking this off, because at the moment this whole thing weighs an absolute ton. It is so heavy. So I'm going to try and cut it off first and see how that goes. All right, well, thankfully I managed to just get the scraper underneath this. I didn't have to cut it, so I didn't have to get covered in fiberglass. And I managed to get this horrible bonnet scoop off of the car. So that's a good thing. And you can see these LED lights that they've chucked in there. I don't know what they were exactly for in the first place, but that's what they put in there. As I started lifting it up, I could see that there were holes cut in, and I thought, well, I can probably do some basic patches on the bonnet, but then I looked further down, and they've actually dented in this part of the bonnet on both sides so that they could fit those silly lights in. So they've completely trashed this bonnet. Just doing a bit of a patch on either side is not going to cut it. It's just, it's well and truly too far gone. So it looks like I'm going to have to get myself a new bonnet to get this thing a little bit tidier. All right, so you can see that I've cleaned up the bonnet a bit. I just did a little bit of spraying on it just to make it look a little less awful than what it did. The other thing I needed to work on was the headlights. Now, the headlights have always been sort of loose and haven't fit properly. These things from standard actually, when you slide them in, it slides them into the clip, and the electrical connection is done as they're slid and locked in. Somebody on these ones has actually taken out the original headlights and changed them over with some aftermarket like unit thing that is absolutely horrible. It's got this big ugly box screwed to the back of the headlight, and had these cables coming through. It kept getting jammed. You couldn't really get the headlight in properly because it's got this thing in there, and they didn't work. This car would have had the worst headlights I have ever seen. They did actually turn on, but they were the dimmest, most awful things. And of course, they also tinted the front headlights as well, didn't they? Which is always going to help. So I've sort of half disconnected this headlight. As I said, it's a race car. At this stage, I don't have any night races planned, so I don't need headlights right now. Basically, I've only disconnected this front one. This is still connected, so it may still work. And the way these things are actually held in is inside in the bonnet. There's a little 5mm, a little 5mm socket head sort of go in, and you sort of turn it 90 degrees, and there's a cam lock that locks into the bottom of the headlight bucket. So I'm going to fix both these up, get them snugged in nicely, and then we can move on to something else. So the last thing that I've been dying to do is to get rid of these horrible little red stick-on bits onto all the vents in the cabin. It's just some sort of clip-on red metallic trim. So it's just so cathartic to just flick it all off. Some of them fell off anyway, so they were never on properly. They just sort of clipped on there. Just so many horrible things on this car. Oh, I can't believe how much better this car looks. Looking just like a basic Boxster again. It is, yeah, it's looking so much better. Okay, yeah, the bonnet is pretty bad, and if you have a look down the side, it's still got this Grim Reaper. I don't know if you can sort of pick that up in the on the camera. There's a Grim Reaper and sort of flame sticker down the side of this car, which is under the paint and still there, but overall it looks so much better. Wow. Oh, it feels so good to slap most of that ugly off the Roxster. It's getting there. And actually, oh, one more thing. We have an eagle that definitely needs to be removed. Obviously, whoever got the eagle stickers got a pack of 3, so it's got the 2 bigger ones on the bonnet, and this is the 3rd one that they had to stick somewhere. Nothing went to waste on this build. So the Roxster is looking so much better, and it was nice to actually take a break from just banging my head against the wall with this V8 conversion. It starts again, it runs. I haven't checked to see how the overheating's going. It's still definitely leaking oil. I don't think it's actually leaking power steering fluid. So we're chipping away at it, and yeah, we're getting on top of a bunch of the different things. I do have some fixes for the overheating and stuff like that, depending on whether I've actually fixed it so far or not. Again, we'll check that out next time. There are lots of plans for things to make this look even better again. So there are, yeah, I have a bunch of parts here ready to go on to really start upgrading the Roxster and getting it perfect. Next episode, I'll make sure that it's actually, I can get it all sorted, all running properly, not overheating, try and sort out those oil leaks and get that stuff done. So hopefully you'll join me for that whenever that comes out. As always, do the things, like and subscribe. Join me on Patreon to watch the videos a day before everybody else, ad-free. And if you need parts for any of your Porsches, including the world's ugliest Boxster, which is not quite as ugly as it used to be anymore. It probably no longer holds that title. You should compare prices at PorschePartsByJeff.com first. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.